And now, please welcome the Reverend Brad Learmonth.
I've missed the lively discussion this month, and I'm sorry that I have, but I've been having a lively discussion about faith in my head, and I appreciate that. And Kim, thank you for the opening prayer and the idea that you can never have enough faith, because that is indeed what I have come to realize as I've been meditating on this. So I want to open with this. Once the seed of faith takes root, it cannot be blown away, even by the strongest wind. Now that's a blessing. Once the seed of faith takes root, it cannot be blown away, even by the strongest wind. Now that's a blessing. And that is Rumi. And it really sums up why I titled my talk, Faith, Fire in the Soul. As I've been ruminating on the idea, the reality of faith these past weeks, I've realized that in a significant way, faith is the very thing that keeps me alive, sane, awake and aware, and walking a path of service to myself and others, able to navigate not only my inner life and realization of that wholeness, but also the world around me. Within that, I have a great hope for a lot of things. And even when I don't always have hope that they will happen, which is fairly frequent, faith carries me through. If you type faith into your search engine, the predominance of what you get is religious and Christian. To me, that kind of faith has been largely expressed in something outside oneself, God, in a duality that I do not adhere to, and a blind faith in doctrine I left behind as a teenager. True faith, to me, is beyond religion. It's pre-religion, although religion at its best can address it well. In New Thought, it says, when we use our creative imagination and strong faith, it will create for us out of the one substance, whatever we have formed in thought. In this way, man becomes co-creator with God. Okay, that approaches what I feel about it, but the best expression I could find of that was from Father Thomas Keating from the Snowmass Conference on Interreligious and Interspirituality and the 8 principles of agreement that were devised and since expanded to 9. Here is number 4. Faith is opening, accepting, and responding to capital U, capital R, ultimate reality. Faith in this sense precedes every belief system. Now, prior to that, in number 3, it says, ultimate reality is the ground of infinite potentiality and actualization. And right after, in number 5, it says, the potential for human wholeness, or in other frames of reference, enlightenment, salvation, transcendence, transformation, blessedness, Christ consciousness, is present in every human being. Put together, it goes like this. Ultimate reality is the ground of infinite potentiality and actualization. Faith is opening, accepting, and responding to ultimate reality. Faith, in this sense, precedes every belief system. The potential for human wholeness, or in other frames of reference, enlightenment, salvation, transcendence, transformation, blessedness, Christ consciousness, is present in every human being. So what does that mean? It means a lot of things to me, and it has many entry points, and some of them I'm still figuring out, which I guess is the nature of faith. The first, which struck me in the middle of the night, was that our consciousness as human beings is uniquely paradoxical and frustrating. We need faith to help guide us to wholeness when we have all the tools we need to be whole. Okay, that's perhaps a little pessimistic of me, but these gifts of consciousness have made us a uniquely complicated animal. And that animal can be very frustrating at times. Anyway, understanding faith for myself has been an interesting and ongoing journey. It has come to me through great trials in life, and also through the miracles we are surrounded by and can carefully comprehend. Fully comprehend, I mean, if we just open our hearts, carefully too. My years in therapy have given me a faith in myself by understanding and unraveling all that gets in my way and amassing tools to act in my best interest and to trust in something that is not yet tangible, but instrumental in becoming so. In my heart, it is mystical. It means believing in and tapping into that ineffable source of all reality and knowing that ultimate reality guides me to the whole being of non-dualistic existence. So countless little things when we are open to them give us faith, but profound experiences in life can give us leaps of faith. I want to share a couple of events in my life that have instilled faith in me in a big way. The reason I wanted to speak today in particular is because it's my mother's birthday. She would have been 91. She died from ALS in 2008 on September 20th. At approximately 2 a.m. that very early morning, I arose from my bed to go to the bathroom. As I stood in the bathroom half asleep, I looked out the window. There I saw a most beautiful deer eating my neighbor's hydrangea and displaying a huge and stunning bright white tail. It caught me right in my core and left me feeling something I could not put my finger on, but that resonated deeply within me. With that mystery nestled in me, I returned to bed and sleep. It was, by the way, first of many messages from deer I would receive over the coming years. At 6 in the morning, my sister called to tell me my mom died at approximately 2 o'clock in the morning. The news seized me and I shook with grief, clinging to my husband. When I was able to gather myself a bit, I suddenly recalled the deer eating my mother's favorite flower at that same time. The impact of her death had me feeling very disoriented. I didn't know what to do with myself. I knew it was coming. I'd seen her a week before in her completely disabled body and distant mind, and I held her hands and I encouraged her to take the leap that we would be okay. But the reality of it seized me in a primal way. I floundered. It was a gorgeous morning, a perfect September day. I gathered up enough of my wits to send my husband and 2 visiting friends out on what had been our morning plans. I needed to be alone. I got into the outdoor shower and let the water and the sun rain down on me for a good long time. And then I sat in the middle of the garden and closed my eyes. Dappled sun played on my eyelids. Suddenly, a multitude of faces of my mother came sailing by me, like butterflies stopping to gaze at me and then be on their way. Iterations of how I knew her over the years flew by. Just her face, well, her head, because she also came showing off her many hairstyles, of which she was famous for. All of her faces were smiling or laughing in her distinctive way. This lasted for a little while, and it seemed in the course of it, I began to lighten. My confusion lifted. I was infused with peace. I was smiling, and I was ready to meet the day. Tender and spacious became my grief. She was at peace, on her journey, and very much alive. Over the years, she has come to me with messages from beyond, always at the perfect moment. Death was not a stranger to me. I had lived through the AIDS pandemic and lost many friends, but it was this very essential death that began to give me a kind of faith in life, including death, and began to dispel my fear of death. Trust me, I don't want to die anytime soon, but I trust more and more that the moment of death, whenever and however it comes, is one in which all attachment dissolves into one source, and that oneness is perfection itself. My mother's death was a profound leap into faith. A very different experience prior to that gave me a kind of faith that saved my own life. Years before my mother died, I was facing my darkest hour. At a time I believed my life was over, and in some significant ways it could have been, including the possibility of it resulting in my actual death. This was a true dark night of the soul, but it was in this moment I also had a true epiphany, and one that took place in an institution that I had left long before, the church and religion. As a young and deeply troubled boy, I found solace in the church as a choir boy and then an altar boy. It transported me to something that drew me out of my day-to-day problems. That was until it contributed to my problems, and I left. As an adult in my later 20s, I had a friend who took me to hear the amazing choir at St. Thomas Cathedral in New York City. The ritual and ceremony was familiar to me, having been brought up in the Episcopal Church, and I did not run screaming from it. I actually found some comfort in it. In this darkest hour, in the months just after I turned 30, I went alone to St. Thomas during their Lessons and Carols service in the Christmas season of 1983. I thought just sitting there basking in the music, the incense, the ritual, and the space itself would soothe me. As I sat in the back listening to the lessons and the amazing boys' choir, suddenly I began to experience something that initially frightened but then amazed me. The edifice of the church, the magnificent altar, even the music became a permeable vibrational field, a haze of light, of pure spirit, melding and absorbing with me and taking me out of body. I became part of, and yet also carried by this vibrational field, and it bathed within me. It transmitted a distinct message to me. At that moment, I was infused with a pure message of love, with the knowledge that I was deeply loved and that love would carry me through whatever trial lay ahead for me. That trial lasted a good number of years. And the one thing that carried me through was the faith instilled in me that day that I was loved and that all else was ultimately immaterial. I'm getting very welled up today. So these are just two examples of instances in my life that transported me to source and became touchstones for a deeper journey of faith. I'm sure each of you has your own stories that have shown you how your faith becomes more understood and stronger. As powerful as these messages are at the time, they don't miraculously fix us. They provide miracles, but the journey never ends. And if we fixate on that end point, we miss the point. These moments, transforming experiences, whether dark or light, implant information, tools, a resource to draw on and to build on. In my case, more big trials and tests would come later and would lead me to a life of spiritual seeking and service I sought as a child. Each of these would increase my faith, hold me aloft, and show me the way. It is not only trials and tribulations that elevate us toward an understanding of faith. The miracles all around us in our day-to-day are there when we stay open to them. The sheer amazement of nature, as Kim alluded to, is so beautiful, especially out on the East End. The amazement and resilience of people, acts of kindness, innocence of children, our animal companions, who often teach us more about love and faith than our humans. The transformational power of the arts, and so on. What these experiences transmitted to me was a clear and resonant message of love and of the faith, sometimes beyond my little life, to allow me the ability to listen to that still small voice within, and then allowed me to survive and continue on my journey, defining and refining as I go. As Shakespeare said, unbred the rude eye of rebellion and welcome home again discarded faith. My rebellion against allowing myself to flourish entirely runs deep, very deep, and thus my work is a constant. It used to be a constant torture, but these days I have given more and more over to faith, and that faith has allowed me more grace. We all come here because we are seekers, seekers of and into source. Faith keeps us strong in the faith of a world that on any given day seems to be falling down around us. It is a deep running thread that tethers us to source. In those moments, we can at least tell ourselves that we humans may crumble under our own hubris, but everything else will go on, survive, and continue to thrive, no matter what happens to it. And in that faith, we can then be okay, because once the seed of faith takes root, it cannot be blown away, even by the strongest wind. Now that's a blessing. Thank you.